How are we all doing?
Good evening. We are back at our normal time.
Indeed, yes. We thought we would do it at the normal time today. Get back to a bit of routine. We have a few stories for you tonight, don't we? We have 3 stories. It's a little bit of a
Yeah,
mini stream. Mini stream.
yeah. It's a sort of a midway between our usual streams and the Christmas streams we've had. So we have more than one story, but it's not that much discussion. I can talk today, as Katrina had an example of earlier. Uh, At times it seems
Yeah.
like my tongue won't do as I want it to. So I had a hilarious stuttering episode while recording my recording, so I had to stop and so I could get it out of my system. Uh, hey, Kiss is in the chat,
Oh,
hosting
hello,
us. Thank you
kids.
very much. Yeah,
Thank you.
great to see you as always, and we are very happy to have you here.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, my Nita.
It is. Oh, there's Big Hair
Ooh,
Tsunami. Kids hit.
hey, big
Oh, Big
hair,
Hair.
and
Thank you.
this is now a spark.
Nice.
Congratulations to becoming one of our sparks.
Yes, we have quite a few, mostly thanks to Big Head Tsunami. So
Yeah,
massive thanks to Big Head Tsunami for giving out all
yeah,
of those Spark subscriptions. It's very
yeah,
appreciated.
legend, legend. Our
Indeed.
college is music, dance not. Welcome. We are glad to have you here, and Pepe is going wild in the chat.
Woo!
Yay!
Pepe's on a wait on the goose from Goose Game.
Yeah.
That's great. Pepe plus
Ooh,
Goose. Dream
subscriptions.
Dream.
Yeah, subscription for those who want it. Thank you so much. And yes, Kiss, Big Hair is a legend. Most definitely.
Very much. Oh, welcome Ragnar, Elliot Page, Kane, JC Stalling,
Sparky
Sparky.
as always.
Yay!
Yay!
Hi!
This is a good Sunday, and
It is indeed.
oh, it's definitely time for some stories again. It
Yeah.
is one of my favorite things on Sundays, having a few stories and just chill out. It's the last day of the week and everything. So, no, just let the world be the world for a bit. And thank you to JC Starling for the diamond. That is very kind of you.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Thank you very much indeed. Hi, Arcology. Stephen O. Lovely to see you about. Yeah.
yeah,
So, we have a little story that I found which isn't so much specifically Christmas related, but it is in the spirit of the season, I do think.
yeah.
And it's called The Little Feast in the Pantry.
A bit of a cheeky title.
Indeed. We will find out who it is just now. The Little Feast in the Pantry. from A Christmas Hamper, a volume of pictures and stories for little folks. 1889. T. Nelson and Sons. "Mother dear," said a little mouse one day, "I think the people in our house must be very kind, don't you? They leave such nice things for us in the larder." There was a twinkle in the mother's eye as she replied, "Well, my child, no doubt they are very well in their way, but I don't think they are quite as fond of us as you seem to think. Now remember, Grey Whiskers, I have absolutely forbidden you to put your nose above the ground unless I am with you. For, kind as the people are, I shouldn't be at all surprised if they tried to catch you." Grey Whiskers twitched his tail with scorn. He was quite sure he knew how to take care of himself, and he didn't mean to trot meekly after his mother's tail all his life. So, as soon as she had curled herself up for an afternoon nap, he stole away, and scampered across the pantry shelves. Ah, here was something particularly good to-day. A large iced cake stood far back upon the shelf, and Grey Whiskers licked his lips as he sniffed it. Across the top of the cake were words written in pink sugar, but as Grey Whiskers could not read, he did not know that he was nibbling at little Miss Ethel's birthday cake, but he did feel a little guilty when he heard his mother calling. Off he ran, and was back in the nest again by the time his mother had finished rubbing her eyes after her nap. She took Grey Whiskers up to the pantry then, and when she saw the hole in the cake, she seemed a little annoyed. "Some mouse has evidently been here before us," she said, but of course she never guessed that it was her own little son. The next day the naughty little mouse again popped into the pantry when his mother was asleep. But at first he could find nothing at all to eat, though there was a most delicious smell of toasted cheese. Presently he found a dear little wooden house, and there hung the cheese, just inside it. In ran Grey Whiskers, but oh! Click went the little wooden house, and Mousie was caught fast in a trap. When the morning came, the cook, who had set the trap, lifted it from the shelf, and then called a pretty little girl to come and see the thief who had eaten her cake. "What are you going to do with him?" asked Ethel. "Why, drown him, my dear, to be sure." Tears came into the little girl's pretty blue eyes. "You didn't know it was stealing, did you, Mousie dear?" she said. "No," squeaked Grey Whiskers sadly. "Indeed I didn't." Cook's back was turned for a moment, and in that moment tender-hearted little Ethel lifted the lid off the trap, and out popped Mousie. Oh, how quickly he ran home to his mother, and how she comforted him and petted him until he began to forget his fright. Then she made him promise never to disobey her again, and you may be sure he never did. Yes, and that was the little thief in the pantry. A very cute little story, I think. Yeah, just remember, when you've got mice in your house, they don't know that it's stealing. Well, at least the young ones don't. I'm not sure actually how conscious mice are that they're stealing. Wouldn't think so too much.
Not much, I would think. I've had a few encounters with them at our family cabins over the years, so they're quite cheeky little bastards.
They are indeed. I mean, I had one in my house for like a while. It got to the point where it would just run across the kitchen in broad daylight, and I'm like, oh, well, you're not scared at all, are you?
Yeah. My cat has brought a few inside as well, and not everyone is dead. And of course, when she lets them go, they tend to run off and
Oh no.
disappear, which isn't that's not really that fun. And one actually got quite cheeky after a while because
Oh.
it started to drink of my cat's water bowl. The cat wasn't around, so it sat on the edge there
Oh
and looked
goodness.
around and was drinking, and it was so cute. But I did manage to capture it in the end and get it outside again. So, but they are cheeky little bastards.
They are indeed. They're just they run around with impunity at a certain point. I think animals like mice's what? What even was that plural? That isn't a plural that exists. Did I just say mice's? I can't even English. And I am English. What?
Uh, am I
Mice.
infecting you?
Maybe you are. Maybe you are. But I forgot the plural of mouse. I mean,
Yeah, I'm
what
trying
next
to
does it
stay away
complete?
from multiplication.
Oh
And
dear.
I had to change a couple of instances in my story where I tended to say windu, which ended because in Norwegian is vindu. So it ended
Vindu.
up being a combination of Norwegian and English, which is sometimes a common problem for me when I record. So
Yeah.
sometimes it can get a bit weird.
Indeed, it can. It can when you have two languages, especially when they sometimes have words that are similar. It can indeed get weird. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
I have grown up with Disney's Christmas show. So, because that is always shown in Norway, it has been for as long as I've been alive. And,
Ah.
that includes Cinderella and stories like that. So, you have to have a little mouse story during Christmas. It's just Christmas for me. So, they
Yeah.
celebrate Christmas as well, apparently.
Apparently they do. I mean, we did
Yeah.
have that story about William and the bull, like every single animal, like kneeling down on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So there's an idea that animals know that it's Christmas too. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a Norwegian Christmas story about mice, but I think I will hold on to that for next year. Can't use up all our stories
Hmm.
in the first
Indeed.
Christmas. So
Yes,
yeah,
we do have to keep some Christmas folk tales for following Christmases. I feel like several Christmases down the line, it's gonna be like, um, help. Where are the Christmas folk stories? Oh no, we used them up. It's too many. We'd used too many.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I have to admit I have had a bit of a problem getting a Christmas Carol out of my system. So
oh,
I was actually thinking I might do it again for next year. Uh, do a better version of it
I
because I,
mean,
I had so much fun doing it. It was so bloody hard work, but it was really fun. And eventually, I can just read it on air live because I've done it so many times or
yeah,
something like that.
sure. I mean, it gets repeated every Christmas round here. You know,
Yeah,
it's a classic for a reason.
yeah,
Definitely.
TV3 aired that one every year when I was a kid. So the 1984 version. So I've grown up with that. So
Oh, nice.
it was really fun to reading it, but when it comes to the movies, it has to be the one from 1984. There is only one Scrooge, and there is only one second Ghost of Christmas. Ghost of Christmas Present.
Yeah, you just get stuck on one particular like character. Like
Yeah,
I don't think there's like it's like there's no other Adam Stanley, there's no other Harry Potter. It just ain't ever gonna work.
no,
If they do a
and
remake, you sort of feel like that about it, right?
yeah, and in particular when it's something you've seen as a child, because those things imprint themselves on your brain, so it can be very hard to dispel that later.
It can indeed. It definitely can. Like people get
Yeah, it's
attached to their iterations of Doctor Who. I
yeah.
think.
For me, it's the same with Lewis Carroll's story, The Witch, the Lion, and the Cupboard, or
Oh, The Lion,
what
the
it's
Witch, and the
called.
Wardrobe. Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
Narnia.
yeah. I totally blanked on the name there, but BBC made a miniseries about that in the 80s, and that was shown for many years over here. So I can't see anything else but that series. That is not Narnia for me at all.
Hmm. Interesting.
I loved that one when I was a kid, and one of the things I really liked was that it wasn't as glossed over as many of later production seems to be. It was a bit more grainy, a bit more natural actor actors and everything. So
Yeah.
uh, and it wasn't so this super um, my brain is dead today.
Same's.
CGI, CGI. They didn't go overboard with that. It was with costumes and everything. So that one really sticks out in
Yeah,
my head,
it's
and
nice.
it can't change.
Oh, just want to welcome White Healing to the Sparks. Notice you
Yeah.
just got gifted a sub from Lovely Big Hair
Ah,
Tsunami.
congratulations and welcome.
Yes, it's so cool to just see all the spark in chat. You can make it.
Yeah.
You got a few choice of colours what you can make it, but we thought orange on a black background would be the most logical given the name.
Yeah, our thinking behind it is, we want to keep the fire alive of the European cultures, and we want to be ignited if we can, in as many as we can, and hence people who follow us and subscribe to us are our sparks.
Yes.
So keep that flame alive.
Go and set many minds on fire with European
Yeah,
culture.
hopefully. Yeah.
King Pepe.
Um,
That's great.
some of them are quite funny, actually.
Some of them are quite funny, yeah.
Uh, yeah. But one of the biggest compliments I saw in the comment sections during this week was one of our listeners listened to our stories with his sons,
That is
and
wonderful.
they love it. So that is the biggest
Wow.
compliment we can have.
That
So
is really,
that's
really
one
cool.
of the reasons why we do it. So yeah, for anyone who hasn't been with us before, we have our streams on Sundays. We're on a Christmas break right now, and we'll be back on January 17th. And during those, we read a few stories and discuss them. And then we upload the stories afterwards on our YouTube, and we're in the process of getting everything over on Library. So all of the stories can be listened to as separate stories on our YouTube. So now you can listen to them when you want, and you don't have to
Yes.
have all the discussion and make your own playlist and everything. So I hope people will go and enjoy them. And for those on DLive, all our links are in the description.
I'll be honest, when I actually have kids, I'll probably be using pre-recorded stories I've done to distract them sometimes. Just like, here,
Well,
Mummy's
one of my
busy, listen to a
favorites,
story. Go on.
yeah, one of my favorites when I was a kid was a tape we had of fairy tales with some classical music in between every story.
Oh,
I
nice.
loved that tape, and so did my sister. So it's definitely something I would recommend
When I was
for
growing
anyone with.
when I was growing up, listening to stories and also like because there was Roald Dahl stories that turned up with CD promotions in the cereal packets. I don't know if anyone else
Mm,
from Britain remembers this. How there was like for a time there was I think it was maybe Shreddies or someone had CDs of Roald Dahl in the packets, and they also had for a while a partnership with Horrible Histories. So we used to like listen to those in the car or just generally. Oh yeah, the Daily Telegraph CDs as well. It was a real phase. I don't know if other parts of Europe went through it, but certainly in Britain, it was a real phase that everything came with like a free CD. I don't particularly know why. It was a good phase though. There was lots of education being given out for free.
yeah, yeah, that should be definitely taken up again, it sounds like. And welcome to Jay Wilson and Blue Monday on YouTube. It is good to see you.
Hi. Hi Blue Monday. Hi Jay Wilson. It's
Yeah,
good to see you guys.
I will agree with the chat on DLive that the early Disney stories are quite good.
Yeah.
Though you still have to look out for some subliminal programming in them as well. But that is really prevalent in the newer films.
Oh my goodness.
And
Someone's
then I'm not
talking
even
about.
including,
Yeah.
the the new Lion King and all of that.
Oh goodness. Yeah. That. I don't know. Actual original like Lion King is like pretty based.
Yeah, but that's definitely have elements of the Cold War within it. My
Mm.
sister pointed that out to me as a child, with basically the Sickle and Hammer in the stars when Scar
Huh.
is taking power and everything. I didn't know that because I was too small, but my sister knew a bit more about it because she's older than me. So she saw it. Really.
I never noticed that. Yeah. Someone's talking about
Yeah,
Paddington. Love Paddington. Got shown Paddington and the Clangers as well and Bagpuss.
yeah.
My parents like those weren't my generation, but my parents showed me those shows from their generation.
Yeah, over here they are airing Peter Rabbit actually for
Oh, nice.
the children, animated. I hadn't heard of it before I got to know English people over this last year. So um,
It's good. There are
yeah,
like
uh,
weird remakes of some of these things. I forgot to unmute so nobody else on the stream heard what I just said. Um, but you can still get the old versions. I'd show them to my kids. Old versions of a lot of these shows. Oh, hello, White
yeah.
Rabbit.
Uh,
Thank you very much
Hey
for hosting
Tim.
us.
Yeah, good to see you as always. Uh, Tim is one of our regular hosters. He's a great guy. So go and follow him. He has some interesting shows on Saturdays and Tuesdays, and he's getting into some new stuff on Thursdays now. So that will be interesting to see.
Oh, and is now a Spark. Thanks again, Big Head Tsunami, and welcome, Tim.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you and welcome, Tim, to our little family of Sparks.
Yeah, so up next we got one from you, which is a bit of, you were saying the inspiration for the latest iteration of Frozen.
Yeah, since we are on the topic of Disney, this is a story of H.C. Andersen from Denmark, and is one of the inspirational stories behind Frozen, as Katrina just mentioned. It's only an excerpt, though, because the story itself is quite long and in several parts. So I will give you the two first parts today, and I'll see when I get to the next parts.
Indeed. Might be a cliffhanger. Might have to come back to it next year. I mean,
yeah, maybe.
Some shows have that long of a season break.
Yeah, well, I I don't have the energy to start a new series right now.
Nope.
Charles Dickens definitely took some of my air out of me, but definitely worth it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy The Snow Queen. The Snow Queen in 7 Stories by H.C. Andersen. First story, which treats of the mirror and fragments. Look you, now we are going to begin. When we are at the end of the story, we shall know more than we do now, for he was a bad goblin. He was one of the very worst, for he was a demon. One day he was in very good spirits, for he had made a mirror which had this peculiarity, that everything good and beautiful that was reflected in it shrank together into almost nothing, but that whatever was worthless and looked ugly became prominent and looked worse than ever. The most lovely landscapes seen in this mirror looked like boiled spinach, and the best people became hideous, or stood on their heads and had no bodies. Their faces were so distorted as to be unrecognizable, and a single freckle was shown spread out over nose and mouth. That was very amusing, the demon said. When a pious thought passed through any person's mind, these were again shown in the mirror, so that the demon chuckled at his artistic invention. Those who visited the goblin school, for he kept a goblin school, declared everywhere that a wonder had been wrought. For now, they asserted, one could see for the first time how the world and the people in it really looked. Now they wanted to fly up to heaven, to sneer and scoff at the angels themselves. The higher they flew with the mirror, the more it grinned. They could scarcely hold it fast. They flew higher and higher, and then the mirror trembled so terribly amidst this grinning that it fell down out of their hands to the earth, where it shattered into 100 million and more fragments. And now this mirror occasioned much more unhappiness than before, for some of the fragments were scarcely so large as a barleycorn, and these flew about in the world. And whenever they flew into anyone's eye, they stuck there, and those people saw everything wrongly, or had only eyes for the bad side of things, for every little fragment of the mirror had retained the same power which the whole glass possessed. A few persons even got a fragment of the mirror into their hearts, and that was terrible indeed, for such a heart became a block of ice. A few fragments of the mirror were so large that they were used as window panes, but it was a bad thing to look at one's friends through these panes. Other pieces were made into spectacles, and it went badly when people put on these spectacles to see rightly and to be just. And then the demon laughed till his paws shook, for it tickled him so. But without, some little fragments of glass still floated about in the air, and now we shall hear. Second story, a little boy and a little girl. In the great town, where there are many houses and so many people that there is not room enough for everyone to have a little garden, and where consequently most people are compelled to be content with some flowers in flower pots, were two poor children who possessed a garden somewhat larger than a flower pot. They were not brother and sister, but they loved each other quite as much as if they had been. Their parents lived just opposite each other in two garrets, there where the roof of one neighbor's house joined that of another, and where the water pipe ran between the two houses, was a little window. One had only to step across the pipe to get from one window to the other. The parents of each child had a great box in which grew kitchen herbs that they used, and a little rose bush. There was one in each box, and they grew famously. Now it occurred to the parents to place the boxes across the pipe so that they reached from one window to another, and looked quite like two embankments of flowers. Pea plants hung down over the boxes, and the rose bushes shot forth long twigs which clustered around the window and bent down towards each other. It was almost like a triumphal arch of flowers and leaves. As the boxes were very high, and the children knew that they might not creep upon them, they often obtained permission to step out upon the roof behind the boxes, and to sit upon their little stools under the roses, and there they could play capitally. In the winter there was an end of this amusement. The windows were sometimes quite frozen all over, but then they warmed copper shillings on the stove, and held the warm coins against the frozen pane, and this made the capital peephole so round, and behind it gleamed a pretty mild eye at each window, and these eyes belonged to the little boy and the little girl. His name was Kay, and the little girl's was Gerda. In the summer they could get to one another at one bound, but in winter they had to go down and up the long staircase, while the snow was pelting without. "Those are white bees swarming," said the old grandmother. "Have they queen bee?" asked the little boy, for he knew that there is one among the real bees. "Yes, they have one," replied Grandma. "She always flies where the swarm is thickest. She is the largest of them all, and never remains quiet upon the earth. She flies up again into the black cloud. Many a midnight she is flying through the streets of the town, and looks in at the windows, and then they freeze in such a strange way, and look like flowers." "Yes, I've seen that," cried both the children, and now they knew that it was true. "Can the Snow Queen come in here?" asked the little girl. "Only let her come," cried the boy, "and I'll set her upon the warm stove, and then she'll melt." But grandmother smoothed his hair and told some other tales. In the evening, when little Kay was at home and half undressed, he clambered upon the chair by the window and looked through the little hole. A few flakes of snow were falling outside, and one of them, the largest of them all, remained lying on the edge of one of the flower boxes. The snowflake grew larger and larger, and at last became a maiden, clothed in the finest white gauze, put together of millions of starry flakes. She was beautiful and delicate, but of eyes, of shining, glittering eyes. Yet she was alive. Her eyes flashed like two clear stars, but there was no peace or rest in them. She nodded towards the window and beckoned with her hand. The little boy was frightened and sprang down from the chair. Then it seemed as if a great bird flew by outside, in front of the window. Next day there was a clear frost, and then spring came. The sun shone, the green sprouted forth, the swallows built nests. The windows were opened, and the little children again sat in their garden high up in the roof, over all the floors. How splendidly the roses bloomed this summer! The little girl had learned a psalm in which mention was made of roses, and when speaking of roses, she thought of her own, and she sang it to the little boy, and he sang too. "The roses will fade and pass away, but we, the Christ child, shall see one day." And the little ones held each other by the hand, kissed the roses, looked at God's bright sunshine, and spoke to it as if the Christ child were there. What splendid summer days those were! How beautiful it was without, among the fresh rose bushes, which seemed as if they would never leave off blooming. Kay and Gerda sat and looked at a picture book of beasts and birds. Then it was, while the clock was just striking 12 on the church tower, that Kay said, "Oh, something struck my heart and pierced me in the eye." The little girl fell upon his neck. He blinked his eye. No, there was nothing at all to be seen. "I think it's gone," said he. But it was not gone. It was just one of those glass fragments which sprang from the mirror, the magic mirror that we remember well, The ugly glass that made everything great and good, which was mirrored in it, seemed small and mean, but in which the mean and wicked things were brought out in relief, and every fault was noticeable at once. Poor little Kay also received a splinter just in his heart, and that will now soon become like a lump of ice. It did not hurt him now, but the splinter was still there. "Why do you cry?" he asked. "You look ugly like that. There's nothing the matter with me." "Oh, fie!" he suddenly exclaimed. "That rose is worm-eaten, and this one is quite crooked. After all, they're ugly roses. They're like the box in which they stand." And then he kicked the box with his foot and tore both roses off. "Kay, what are you about?" cried the little girl. And when he noticed her fright, he tore off another rose, and then sprang into his own window, away from pretty little Gerda. When she afterwards came with her picture book, he said it was only fit for babies in arms. And when grandmother told stories, he always came in with a but. And when he could manage it, he could get behind her, put on a pair of spectacles, and talk just as she did. He could do that very cleverly, and the people laughed at him. Soon he could mimic the speech and gait of everybody in the street. Everything that was peculiar or ugly about him, Kay could imitate, and people said, "That boy must certainly have a remarkable head." But it was the glass that stuck deep in his heart, and so it happened that he teased little Gerda, who loved him with all her heart. His games now became quite different from what they were before. They became quite sensible. One winter's day, when it snowed, he came out with a great burning glass, held up the blue tail of his coat, and let the snowflakes fall upon it. "Now look at the glass, Gerda," said he. And every flake of snow was magnificent, and looked like splendid flowers, or a star with 10 points. It was beautiful to behold. "See how clever that is," said Kay. "That is much more interesting than real flowers, and there is not a single fault in it. They're quite regular until they begin to melt." Soon after, Kay came in thick gloves and with his sledge upon his back. He called up to Gerda, "I've got leave to go into the great square where the other boys play," and he was gone. In the great square, the boldest among the boys often tied their sledges to the country people's carts, and thus rode with them a good way. They went capitally. When they were in the midst of their playing, there came a great sledge. It was painted quite white, and in it sat somebody wrapped in a rough white fur, and with a white rough cap on his head. The sledge drove twice round the square, and Kay bound his little sledge to it, so that he drove on with it. It went faster and faster, straight into the next street. The man who drove it turned around and nodded in a friendly way to Kay. It was as if they knew one another. Each time when Kay wanted to cast loose his little sledge, the stranger nodded again, and then Kay remained where he was, and thus they drove out of the town gate. Then the snow began to fall so rapidly that the boy could not see a hand's breadth before him, but still he drove on. Now he hastily dropped the cord, as to get loose from the great sledge, but it was no use, for his sledge was fast bound to the other, and they went on like the wind. Then he called out quite loudly, but nobody heard him, and the snow beat down, and the sled flew onward. Every now and then it gave a jump, and they seemed to be flying over hedges and ditches. The boy was quite frightened. He wanted to say his prayer, but could remember nothing but the multiplication table. The snowflakes became larger and larger. At last they looked like great white fowls. At once they sprang aside, and the great sledge stopped, and the person who had driven it rose up. The fur and the cap were made altogether of ice. It was a lady, tall and slender and brilliantly white. It was the Snow Queen. "We have driven well," said she, "but why do you tremble with cold? Creep into my fur." And she seated him beside her in her own sledge, wrapped the fur around him, and he felt as if he sank into a snowdrift. "Are you still cold?" asked she, and then she kissed him on the forehead. Oh, that was colder than ice. It went quite through to his heart, half of which was already a lump of ice. He felt as if he were going to die, but only for a moment. And then he seemed quite well, and he did not notice the cold all about him. "My sledge! Don't forget my sledge!" That was the first thing he thought of. And it was bound fast to one of the white chickens, and this chicken flew behind him with the sledge upon his back. The Snow Queen kissed Kay again, and then he had forgotten little Gerda, his grandmother, and all at home. "Now you shall have no more kisses," said she, "for if I did, I should kiss you to death." Kay looked at her. She was so beautiful, he could not imagine a more sensible or lovely face. She did not appear to him to be made of ice now as before, when she sat at the window and beckoned to him. In his eyes she was perfect. He did not feel at all afraid. He told her he could do mental arithmetics as far as fractions, and that he knew the number of square miles and the number of inhabitants in the country. And she always smiled, and then it seemed to him that what he knew was not enough, and he looked up into the wide sky, and she flew with him high upon the black cloud, and the storm blew and whistled. It seems as though the wind sang old songs. They flew over woods and lakes, over sea and land. Below them roared the cold wind, the wolves howled, and snow crackled. Over them flew the black screaming crows. But above all, the moon shone bright and clear, and
Hello. Are we back?
we should be back.
Yes, we are back, apparently. Did the story finish, or did it crash before that?
This is a good question.
The story did finish. Yes. She just kissed him. And, he was telling her. Yeah, it ended on the Snow Queen being, perfect in his eyes, and telling her things that he knew about the population of the country and stuff like that. Yes, we did get to the end. Okay. Didn't seem to drop off at an odd point for anyone. No. Okay, good. It is really quite odd that my OBS just did that. I did not click close on it. That's quite odd.
Maybe the Snow Queen came into your computer or something.
Maybe we're blaming this on mythological forces again.
Yeah.
Was it Nissus or Faye this time?
We've had Fays and Nissus who have interrupted with our tech, so and according to the story, it might not be the best to summon this Ice Queen, so the Snow Queen. As you know, they definitely did that.
I guess
and the question is,
I guess spirits have had to branch out because nobody goes wandering around in the woods anymore. So, you know. The audio was started to glitch about 10 minutes before it cut out. Well, I'll have to see what the Flip Obs is doing. I don't think it's my internet today. Because D-Live is, things aren't buffering for me today, and Discord stayed connected, so I don't much know what OBS was doing there. But never mind.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I will get the story up on YouTube in full this evening, so so you can get the last minutes on there.
We only have one more tonight, and it was one that I found about the night after Christmas, and I thought it was quite funny. But yeah, it introduces a new character to the Christmas canon, and just sort of acts like we know who he is. Like, oh, of course, that dude. And I was like, no, I don't know that dude. You're acting like I should know this dude. But I just now accept him as part of the Christmas canon.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be a plethora of figures popping up, so
Indeed.
it
What's
can be a
one
bit
more?
hard to know everyone.
Well, I shall just play it for you. It's not too long, so hopefully OBS will remain active during that time. The night after Christmas. 'Twas the night after Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, excepting a mouse. The stockings were flung in haste over the chair, for hopes of St. Nicholas were no longer there. The children were restlessly tossing in bed, for the pie and the candy were heavy as lead, while Mama in her kerchief and I in my gown had just made up our minds that we would not lie down, when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang to my chair to see what was the matter. Away to the window I went with a dash, flung open the shutter and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave lustre of noonday to objects below, when what to my long anxious eyes should appear but a horse and a sleigh, both old-fashioned and queer, with a little old driver, so solemn and slow, I knew at a glance it must be Dr. Bro. I drew in my head and was turning around, when upstairs came the doctor with scarcely a sound. He wore a thick overcoat made long ago, and the beard on his chin was white with the snow. He spoke a few words and went straight to his work. He felt all the pulses, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, with a nod of his head, to the chimney he goes. A spoonful of oil, ma'am, if you have it handy. No nuts and no raisins, no pies and no candy. These tender young stomachs cannot well digest all the sweets that they get. Toys and books are the best, but I know my advice will not find many friends, for the custom of Christmas the other way tends. The fathers and mothers and Santa Claus too are exceedingly blind. Well, a good night to you. I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, these feastings and candies make doctors' bills right. Yeah, so that was the night after Christmas, featuring the somewhat mysterious Dr. Bro, whose name is such because of course it has to rhyme with slow, but he also sounds vaguely like he turns up at your house after Christmas and asks you would you even lift. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, as long as it's not related to our modern bros, then I don't have a problem with it.
That's true. I just like the idea of this dude turning up after Christmas, dispensing, like, hangover recipes and
Yeah.
Alka-Seltzers, and advising you to cut back on the carbs.
Yeah, well, that's how it goes.
Just like,
Christmas is indulgence and abundance, so at times you might have the need of a proper doctor to some advice and administer some
yeah.
actual medicines.
It leaves you with quite a lot of questions. You're like, does this doctor just come round to your house every year after Christmas? Or is it everyone's house? In your town? In your street? In the world?
Yeah, well, doesn't come to mind, but then I tend to take it quite easy on Christmas Eve, so
Yeah, so it doesn't
maybe it
need to
only
come round
comes
to
to
yours
those
with
who
the
needs
capsule.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just weird. The
Yeah.
completely new character to the Christmas canon. I feel like this is an alternate
Well, they.
universe version of reality where this is true. And the after Christmas
Yeah.
Doctor
Well.
is just a thing.
Yeah. Maybe. I haven't
Dear
actually
me.
heard that one before. So we don't have any Christmas doctors over here. So we only have the Nisses. Oh,
Yes, and the Nisses, they also sort of exist outside of Christmas time, but they're quite
yeah.
associated with it as well, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely merged
Yeah,
with Father Christmas. So
definitely indeed. Oh, hello, psychedelic squirrel. Have we
yeah.
seen you around before? Cool name. I love some people's
Yeah.
usernames, honestly. It's great.
Yeah, so some are quite fun. Some are basically the shitpost themselves. So, or the
Yes.
Fed post themselves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, some of them do get a bit Fed posty. Some of them you're like,
yeah,
I'll not read that fully. I'll not read that fully.
yeah. But for
I
the most
mean,
part,
the best
it's
one
fun names.
the best one I saw trying to trip streamers up was Ned Higger.
Mm.
Think
Yeah,
about it for a minute.
and
Oh dear.
hey, offensive username, good to see you again. Yeah, well, there's the YouTuber Rorist, and a friend of mine on the stream chats, racism.
Ah, yep.
I didn't catch that at first.
No, I've seen that guy about, and I didn't catch it first. Racism. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get it now. I just
yeah,
hadn't said it out loud. Oh.
yeah. It was brought up to me when I was quite tired the first time as well, so my mind was very slow in getting it, but I was forgiven because I was very
Yeah.
tired. Yeah,
Oh,
but
hi offensive
racism is
username.
a very good guy, so
Hi offensive username.
I
I've
hope
not
you
a
have
pretty
had
good
a good
username.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And of course, there is the legendary evidence violates community guidelines. Oh,
Yes.
my dear Sterling, that is a good guy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we have so many good people in our circles. It's,
It is amazing. It's really good.
yeah, it is.
Yeah. But that is all we had for you tonight in terms of stories. Just a little stream. Give you some semi-Christmassy stories. Like, we're coming out of Christmas mode now, but we're not technically out of Christmas mode until 5th January.
Yeah,
You can keep
so
Christmas
there's
until
2
then.
more days to go.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for
Non-fake
the
news.
diamond.
And Kiz, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
very generous of you. Um,
Kiz
so
says,
yeah, we will get 2 more stories to you tomorrow
mm-hmm.
and on Tuesday, as Tuesday is the 12th day of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will be on a proper break until the 17th, which is the start of our season 2.
Yes, it is. And
Thank you, Damdami, for the ice creams.
we are having
To see you.
guests. We are having guests for our first
Yeah.
2 shows of the season, and going to look at talking to people and hopefully getting more guests. So yeah, details to come soon.
Yeah.
Ooh, influx of
Thank you
ice
for the ice
creams as
cream
well.
and lemons.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
Dandami and
White
white wheat.
wheat. Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
and we will start our second season off with the topic of death. So that will be an interesting deep dive.
Bit of a dark one, certainly, but you know, he's massive, massive figure, both in terms of the concept and the skeletal dude with the scythe, and other
Yeah,
personifications of him. And hopefully,
yeah.
the two guests we have on both have their sort of unique philosophical perspectives on death.
Yeah.
So it's
And
going to
it
be
is
interesting.
proper for the season as, we're in the darkest part. The sun has just turned again, and it is a season where light and darkness is fighting it out for control over the world. So, it is a proper topic.
It is indeed. We shall sort of be following into the sort of spring resurrection themes when it comes round to the day of Imbolc. Or just before it, because we're on Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you all have a lovely evening. Hope you're all getting started on those New Year's resolutions. I hope you've all still got your Christmas decorations up until the official end of Christmas. I mean, if you want to go
Yeah.
hardcore, you could keep them up till Candlemas.
Yeah, over here there's a saying that Christmas lasts until Easter. That's not true because Lent comes in between, so
Yeah. You can't keep Christmasing
it's
over
an
Lent.
old song.
Not if you're a good Catholic.
No, that is an old song in Scandinavia. So, yeah, but don't you dare take those Christmas decorations down before the 13th day of Christmas. That is heresy.
It is indeed. I mean,
Yeah.
technically, I'm already a heretic, but I think I'm just gonna keep them up because I refuse to stop having the shiny things around my house. I only get to use them once a year. Might as well
Yeah.
get my money's worth out of them.
Yeah, I do like the extra lighting. We have stars in our windows and, of course, the Christmas tree, but that one will go out on the 13th day of Christmas. But some of the outdoor lighting usually stays up for a bit while it's still quite dark up here. So I definitely like that because.
Yeah.
When you only have a few hours of daylight every day,
Yeah.
it's less than 6 hours where I am. So
Gotta.
then you do like to have the extra lighting during
Gotta
Christmas.
brighten the place up a little bit.
Yeah.
Understandable. Understandable.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed the show and that you've had a wonderful Christmas. And hopefully we will see you again for the next 2 days for our little mini streams with the story. And welcome to our channel when our season 2 will start on the 17th.
Yes. In the meantime, have a good new year. Hope the transition back to work or study is smooth, that there's lots better to come in 2021.
Yeah, probably won't be the easiest year we've had, but I do think we'll win.
Yeah.
I don't think they will manage what they want. And good to see you, Lycomedes. Yeah,
Yay. I like
welcome. Hey, Jewel. Happy New Year.
Oh, hey. Hi, Jules Citizen.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, good night to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Have a lovely evening.
Good night.
Good night.